शौर दे के मोहम्मद के आस्ताने का मिजाज बदलेंगे हम इस नए ज़माने का.
How much faith do you have in Allah? If 10,000, 20,000, 24,000 fierce warriors surround your home with the sole purpose of slitting your throat and watching your blood spill on the street, what would you do? Would you entrust your affairs to Allah the Almighty? Would you trust that Allah Himself will save you? This was the Battle of the Trench, Ghazwa-e Khandaq. We now enter that period of Islamic history when the animosity of the Arabian tribes against Islam had reached its pinnacle. The Quraysh of Makkah had unified the entirety of Arabia against one small town of Medina. As Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmed MA writes, the bloodthirsty beasts of the Arabian desert overflowed into Medina in the likeness of a grand flood with the intention of annihilating the Muslims. They resolved that until they had expunged the Muslims from the face of the earth, they would not return to their homes. The Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, upon hearing news that this army had set out to attack Medina, sought counsel from his companions. And upon the advice of Hazrat Salman Farsi Raziyallahu Anhu, the Prophet Muhammad instructed that a ditch be dug along the unprotected side of Medina. There was only one unprotected side of Medina. The other three sides were secure on three fronts to some extent. So after continuous labor of more or less 20 days, or in light of one narration, after 6 days of work, day and night, this ditch was completed. And the companions were absolutely exhausted, but they had no time to rest. As soon as this ditch was completed, the enemy of disbelievers reached Medina. But they were confounded and astonished to see that there was this hindrance in their way. They were only compelled to set up camp on the plain beyond the ditch. And on the other side of the ditch, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ set up his army of 3,000 Muslims. So it was now to the Muslims' benefit. It was impossible to fight a battle in an open field or wage an all-out attack on the city. So what did the enemy do? They did what they could only do, and that was to form a siege and to begin to search for opportunities to exploit the weaker sections of the ditch. As the days passed on and as they besieged the city of Medina, the Meccan enemy also convinced the Banu Qurayza, the last remaining Jewish tribe in Medina, who were living in Medina, to betray the Muslims and attack from within. Now imagine, the Muslims have to face the enemy who is outside of Medina in the tens of thousands, and now they have to face an enemy from within Medina, their old allies turned enemy. Here Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmed Raziyallahu Anhu writes, the horizon of Medina at this time was immensely dark and gloomy. On all four fronts of the city, thousands of bloodthirsty enemies had set up camp. All of them lay in ambush to find an opportunity to pounce at the Muslims and annihilate them. Within the city at arm's reach of the Muslims were the treacherous Banu Qurayza, who were no less than a fierce army in and of themselves. They were in a position to attack the Muslims from the rear whenever they pleased, and the Muslim women and children were easy prey for them at all times. What would you do if you were in this situation? What level of faith in Allah would you have? Would you be like those weak companions or those hypocrites living in Medina who began to allege that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was false in his promise of victory? That the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was dishonest in his promise that God would bestow victory upon the Muslims? Or are you like those sincere Muslims who supported the Prophet? And as the Quran states, وَلَمَّا رَأَى الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الْأَحْزَابَ قَالُوا هَذَا مَا وَعَدَنَا اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَصَدَقَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَمَا زَادَهُمْ إِلَّا إِيمَانًا وَتَسْلِيمًا. When the believers, the true believers, saw this army of disbelievers, they said, this is what Allah and His Messenger promised us. And Allah and His Messenger are indeed truthful. And this onslaught only added to their faith and submission. The Battle of the Trench is a story of faith in Allah and trust in Allah being rewarded. After 20 long, brutal days of hardship, of battle, of starvation, of fear, the Muslims emerged from Medina unscathed. The whole of Arabia, with all its might and with all its muscles flexed, was unable to destroy a small town. What can we call that, if not an act of divine intervention? This is just a brief glimpse into this week's readings. For more information, please refer to The Life and Character of the Seal of Prophets, Volume 2, pages 449 to 485.
يا ربي صل على نبيك دائما